Good afternoon, everyone. And I hope you have basically had a good day so far. Okay, my name is Rizal Alwani. I'm actually the CEO of Locomo Sanggar. We are actually a company that is into early stage development, basically programs and services, where we are running an accelerator. Our accelerator is based in Empire Damansara, which is in collaboration with MyNav Foundation, the New Entrepreneurs Foundation. Our main business is to actually, if you've heard of something like a Y Combinator or JFDI and all those stuff, 3 months acceleration, 100 days acceleration, that's what we do at RAVE. RAVE actually stands for Rapid Asia Ventures. So we actually are in the midst of starting our second batch of accelerator, the second batch of the 20 more companies for the next 3 months. So this will be ongoing for the next year, and of course next year we'll expand to Southeast Asia. Okay, here with me is my partner, Mr. Dan Kimball. I'll introduce him first. Dan is basically the founder of LiveScribe. LiveScribe, one of the founders of LiveScribe. I'll get him to talk about LiveScribe. But for those who are familiar with, nowadays, I'm not sure of other applications, but if you, for the Muslim, you buy the Quran, then there's a pen that can scribe the Quranic text. So that technology was founded by their team. All right, so I tell you, so basically Dan has had a lot of experience in building startups in the, basically the, I don't want to use the term wrong. so because I remember you were telling me if it's the Bay Area and all those things might mean a different thing.
Okay.
All right, so, okay. Just a bit about what we hope to do is to, because we run this for a month, actually 2 months. We run a series of validation programs in our accelerator for 2 months. We actually bring people out to the field and actually get them to meet a lot of people until they get sales. So we emulated this during MaGIC's launch last year. We had a mini version of an accelerator for 25 days. And after doing it's called a BOD challenge. After the 25 days, the entrepreneurs actually secured 500,000 actual sales after doing the traction and stuff like that. So of course, that's a 25-day cramped module. So we have this in our accelerator on an extended. So we're trying our best to tell you the concepts today, but you actually need to go out and do this validation to make it actually worthwhile. So how many of you are already in business, already on your own? All right. And how many of you are still working and about to see whether you can jump into entrepreneurship, as you may call it? All right. Okay, that's good. And the third one is really not wanting to have anything to do with entrepreneurship, or okay, all right. So without further ado, let me just pass the floor to Dan. What we will do is we'll have a casual. I'll interrupt here and then to also give some examples. We have a few actually a game sorted for you, so which we will hopefully. After that, you will be able to pick up what the gist of what we're going to convey today.
Okay.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, first, maybe I should just introduce myself again, Dan Kimball. I've been in Malaysia now for almost 3 years. I was 5 years in Indonesia prior to that. But I've spent most of my adult life, I'm older than most of you, but I've spent most of my adult life passionately in pursuit of many different ventures of all sorts. From the time that I first got in high school and doing things that I really loved doing to the present day. So I've done a lot of different things and I've learned a lot of things, and I'm really excited to be here today to tell you about some things that are fundamentally new. I've been around, so I know that there are a lot of wrong ways to do it, and I want to show you and tell you about the exciting new opportunities that we have. First of all, you're very lucky to be in this room right now because, first of all, you're interested in entrepreneuring. That means that you've got some of it in your blood, right? I think that you can teach entrepreneurship, you know, people can learn to be entrepreneurs, but there's some people who are kind of born with it and who really love it and kind of are engaged in it, and that's an important trait, and it's something that I'm learning about the culture here in Malaysia and in Indonesia, that cultures are just different everywhere in the world, and culture is an extremely important part of making entrepreneurship work. So I'm not here to bring California. I mean, most of my adult life has been in California, and I know what the culture is like in California, and I know how to make things work. When I came here, I did poorly. I couldn't find team. I couldn't find people to talk to. People wouldn't open up to me and tell me. I felt like, how am I screwing this up so badly? Because and I began to realize that it's just a culture clash. I had different ways of doing things, and people didn't coordinate very well with that. So I'm very lucky to have met Rizal, because Rizal has been connected to this community for many years, and he and I have had a real connection that kind of made it possible for, I think, us to open up what entrepreneurship is all about in Malaysia, and in my understanding of it now. So validation, that's why we're here to talk today about validation. I mean, what does that really mean? You probably had time to read the cartoon here. This is really what we want to do. We want to pay attention to the problems that are occurring. This is about. I mean, it's a joke because parking. That's not what you do in parking. But validation is really about venturing, but about doing venturing in a very different way. And the reason I say you're lucky is that there's a fundamental revolution going on in entrepreneurship, and it comes about as kind of a secret that was been revealed quite recently. And that secret has now been codified, and we teach that secret, but not just teach it, but practice it, which is more important than even knowing the theory, is knowing how to practice it. So what is a venture? What would you say that a venture is? I mean, my best collection, do you have any idea? This is my best idea, is that it's a collection of ideas that solve a problem for a customer, right? It's not just one idea. Sometimes people say, oh, I've got this great idea, right? It's not just one idea. There's got to be a lot of things that go together to make sure that that idea is, or that solution, or what the problem that's being solved is delivered to your customer. So there's a lot of ideas, a whole collection of things that have to be solved for a customer. And I think of it really as a proposition of some kind of value to your customer. It's always about your customer. It's never about you. It's never about your idea. Sometimes we fall in love with our ideas and say, this is a great idea. But if there's no customers for it, it's ridiculous. It's useless. So it's about proposing. Proposition is a good word, and we use the word value proposition quite frequently. You'll hear about that. But we're proposing some value to the customer. Well, what is value? Value has to do with delivering something that solves a problem for the customer. I mean, if they don't value it, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean much to them. But if it solves a problem for them, they say, yeah, I need that, or I want that, or because it helps me. So that's what this proposition of value is. It's not about having a good idea. I fell in love with my first ideas. I fell in love with some really cool things that I think would be great problems to solve. Some of them failed horribly. And it was because I was in love with this idea that kept driving me. So passion is really important. You have to have passion. Passion is the thing that gets you excited to wake up in the morning and to go off and do stuff. But make sure that you're not falling in love with your idea, because that kind of blind love is something that can get you really in trouble. And entrepreneurship is connected with this idea of, oh, I've got this great idea, let's go out and do that. But this idea of blind love is an important one to keep in mind when you're doing that, because ideas inherently are problematic. Human beings have ideas, and we're always making mistakes. They're all they're flawed. Most of our ideas are flawed. And we have to remember that if we don't recognize that our ideas are flawed, we're probably not going to make it, right? We have to understand that, hey, we can have bad ideas. So it's good to have bad ideas and know that you're going to have them and figure out which ones are bad and which ones are good. So ideas can be cheap. You know, they can be worthless. We oftentimes say that, you know, ideas are a dime a dozen. You know, you can have another good idea, but having a good idea is a long stretch from delivering a product. There's a craftsmanship that has to go on between finding what the product is and then how do you deliver it in the form of a solution to a customer that they're going to pay you for, right? That's a lot of steps that go involved, a lot of ideas involved there. It's worldview dependent. This is one of the most critical things, is that you don't know who your customer is. You really don't know. We think we have a good idea, and I think it's a great idea, but I'm only me, right? I can't make a decision for somebody else. And so that's another real core problem with having ideas and thinking we can just move ahead with them that way. Execution of these ideas is very expensive. So if you don't recognize this and you don't understand that having a good idea is not the end all, if you have the good idea and you carry it out to the end, it's very expensive. It costs a lot. It costs a lot in terms of time. I mean, I've spent years doing something that once I recognized the secrets of how to do this properly, I could have saved years of work. Literally, years of work. I could have saved probably millions of dollars of my investors' money by just doing it in a way that makes more sense. And it makes more sense just because we understand it now. So let me tell you a story. There's a man in my hometown, Santa Barbara, California. His name was Reese Duca. And Reese Duca was an amazing entrepreneur. And all of us who were kind of doing entrepreneuring in the community, building businesses, Santa Barbara is in the south part of California, south of the Bay Area, and we call it Silicon Beach. It's a very beautiful beach area, but there was a lot of great software companies that started to burgeon out in Santa Barbara. Silicon Valley's been where a lot of hardware and you know, a lot of software too, but Santa Barbara was a place where software was like really burgeoning. Reese Duca had 5 $100 million companies within 6 years. He took his companies to $100 million within a year or so. Usually they were just one after another. And we all were kind of wondering, well, how does he do this? You know, this is amazing, because we're working hard at it and trying to figure out what we're, you know, and failing oftentimes, not getting any traction at all. And we were kind of wondering, well, why, how? There must be some kind of secret. So we were always looking for what is Reese's secret. Well, I'll tell you what Reese's secret is in a little while, but really it's not about the idea. You know, it's about the problem that you solve for your customer. The problem you solve for your customer is the value you deliver to them. And you can capture that value by getting paid for it. That's what we call capturing value. I deliver that something that they really need, that problem, solution to them. I deliver them the solution. They've got the problem. I deliver the solution to them, and they pay me in return. So is this a good definition? Is this a good definition? I'm posing something new here. Is this a good definition of what a venture is? A risky or daring journey or undertaking, pioneering ventures into little-known waters. A business enterprise, typically one that involves risk. A joint venture between 2 aircraft manufacturers. Undertaking risky or daring journey or a course of action. She ventured out into the blizzard. Some villagers rarely ventured beyond the nearest town, exposed to the risk of loss. This bottom one here says, dare to do or say something that may be considered audacious. May I venture to add a few comments? You know, can I be bold enough to say something that I wouldn't ordinarily say? All these, I think, first of all, I believe that the best word that we have in the English language for entrepreneurship and what you build when you're an entrepreneur is a venture. But I have, and it used to be that ventures were very risky things. I propose now that really the risk has been greatly reduced. And we shouldn't really think of ventures as being risky. Yes, it's a daring journey or undertaking, but it's not necessarily risky. You know, it's a daring journey or course of action, but it's not necessarily risky. You can expose the risk of loss, but to your own money. It doesn't have to be to everybody else's money. If you feel confident about your idea, and you have validated your idea and really know that this is going to make money, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable about spending your own money on something. I did. I got, we call it friends and family money. You know, got some of that. Sometimes it failed, you know, but when I really understood it, it did well. So I'm proposing that there's really a new definition that we should propose here about the nature of what a venture is. So here's your customer. Imagine your customer, right? Can you imagine what kind of problems an ostrich might have? I mean, do you really know an ostrich well enough to understand what their problems are? I say, in general, that's the case of what happens in entrepreneurship. You really don't know who your customers are. They have problems, but you don't know what they are. You really need to discover those problems, and that's part of the secret and part of what validation is all about. You need to understand what their problems are. What are their jobs? What jobs are get done by that? What job does an ostrich do that you maybe could help them do? Right? What problems do they have? What pains do they have? So without further ado, I think we don't have to worry anymore about solving these problems and not really knowing what we're solving. Because there's a new thing that's called the Lean Startup methodology, or that really helps us understand what the nature of the problem is and how do we solve the problem, and working it out in a more scientific framework than what we had done before. So it's really, it's about validation. So let me get back to my story again. I went back to Santa Barbara in about 2006, I think, and I've met a friend of mine, David Lawton, who is an attorney that went to work for Rizal. And as soon as he invited me over for lunch, and as soon as I got in, he says, Dan, you got to read this book. He says, this is Rizal's secret. And I opened it up, and the book was by a man named Steve Blank. It was a book called 4 Steps to Epiphany. And it was a book that outlined the notion that we have to validate our business models. We have to create our business models. We have to understand and develop our customers in the same way we develop products. These were revolutionary ideas. I mean, even though we knew that was kind of the case, we didn't think about it in an objective way that we could do it and practice it as a method, right? So Rizal, David said, this is Rizal's secret. He would validate everything. He would make us understand what the nature of the business is, understand all of the problems and issues, all of the assumptions that we made in building a business, and we would validate those. So that's what we call that's what we talk about validation. And this book that Steve Blank wrote was really a collection of several ideas. Steve Blank was an entrepreneur himself. He started several amazing startups, some really wonderful ones, and some horrible disasters. He describes one startup in which he lost $50 million of his investors' money. And do you know anything about the venture called the Idrium satellites? Has anybody heard of the Idrium satellites? Yeah. They were the first set of cell phones, right? They were a global network of satellites. And they actually spent billions of dollars getting these satellites ready and putting them into space because this was going to be the great solution. No one bought them. No one bought these things for billions of dollars that they had invested in this. This is an example of how to do it wrong, right? You got to find out whether the customer's really going to buy it and whether they're going to use it before you actually build it. And we were literally doing it wrong for many years. So this bad idea that we're risky ventures is not the case anymore. They are not so risky. Yes, they're different and they're new and they're never been done before, so there's inherent risks involved with that. But if you understand the nature of the problems that you're trying to solve and you validate them properly, you can eliminate that risk. So Steve Blank introduced another thing that was, he introduced it to the world by this thing called the business model canvas. It's not Steve Blank's idea. He found a graduate student that had just written a PhD in Switzerland, Alexander Osterwalder, who had this idea of let's create this business model canvas. And we look at this and say, well, this is just a bunch of boxes on a piece of paper and some ideas there. It's not. It's more than that. It's way more than that. Because it used to be that we didn't understand, we didn't even talk about business model with a set of common terms. I mean, think about that for a minute. If you're a company and you're trying to build something, you don't even have the words to talk about your business model, you're not going to succeed. You can't put this synergy together of all those good people's ideas. So what this did is formulated a language, a visual language for organizing the ideas around a business. And this works for any business at all. These are 9 boxes, and they identify the key elements of any business. Doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or a profit business. How many are familiar with the Lean Business Model Canvas? You familiar with this? How many? Really, how many hands? What, like maybe half of you? Half of you? Okay, well, it's really important to know this isn't just another exercise that you could go through to figure out what your business is about. This is fundamentally new because it allows us to talk about our business and talk about our business collectively with other people to get better ideas about what we're doing. And it externalizes our assumptions. If you don't have if you have an assumption that's internal, and sometimes you don't even know you make the assumption, but if you externalize the assumptions and you get them out there so everyone can see them, you can systematically go through and say, well, that's a good idea, that's not a good idea, and figure out which ones work and which ones don't. So this is a core part of what makes validation possible, because you can externalize these ideas and talk about them. So enough for this theory. Theory is important, but practice is far more important. I think I came to Malaysia, first of all, I'm not an academic. I studied really hard in some amazing places in the world, Yale University and other places in the world that gave me a great education, but I didn't ever finish my college. I left because I wanted to start businesses. It was far more interesting and engaging to me to practice this stuff. So I want to start practicing now. And so we're going to play a little game now.
Just before I actually introduce you to the game, I just would like to also ask in the floor, how many of you have actually read Alexander Osterwalder's Business Model Generation book? Okay, all right, you should. And then, okay. So, okay, let me just extend a bit with regards to the because in 2006, I forgot the specific date. That was the first masterclass training that Alexander Osterwalder did in Singapore. So I was one of the participants. I read the book and I was confused. So I was confused, and then I discovered the book in one of our bookstores, and then I went for the masterclass training. So after utilizing this tool in our accelerator, there are a few things that I would like to highlight if you ever get indulged into doing a business model canvas. Right? So we discovered that there are two actually strengths that Steve Blank introduces business model canvas in Udacity in the courses. But one thing that you should appreciate is that this tool can be used for many things. Right? If you want to start writing a business plan, this is probably your architecture of your business plan. Right? You're going to plan out, you already have a solid business model. For example, you just want to open up a coffee shop, or you want to open up a Starbucks. Then this is when you already have a business plan that is already working out there. So you don't. So you then utilize the business model canvas. Right? But the main uniqueness of this BMC is basically to do design on it. Adopt it with design thinking methodologies. If you're familiar with design thinking methodologies and things like that, you can use this tool as a design. It is basically one of the most effective things to do. Right? Because as a design tool, it has a very visual and simple way to go about it. Right? So if you alright, we will not go into details of the business model canvas because this session is all validation. But how do you utilize a business model canvas and relate it to validation. Right? So that is something that we will address after we play the game. But do think about it. Which of these elements that you need to validate? That's the question. All right. So let's get into the game. All right. Let me see if my guys are ready.
We're split up into groups. So you might want to stand up, and we're going to form groups. Charles, Charles? Did you were you involved with getting the groups together? Did you plan the game with us? With 5? How many people? So we're going to find groups of 4. Oh yeah, it's got to be 4, of course.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. You're explaining the game?
You know better than that.
Okay. All right. There is about 40 of you. All right. So we will break into groups of 10. Okay, 10 tables. So we're going to play a game called 5 Tricks. Right? So anybody has played this game before? All right. So you'll be tricked 5 times. Just kidding. All right. There is about, let me do it because there's some new participants like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so that you're going to break into 10 groups. There's about 50 of you. So that makes it 5 to a table. All right? That's basically... So there's a room right here next door. So there's 6 tables in the room. And at the foyer, there's another balanced 4 tables, all right? So after this, make a line, and then we will count as we enter the room. Fill up the room first, and then the spillover will be, we will actually address you to the foyer.
Yeah, 4 people per table, right?
5, because that's 50 now. Okay. So there'll be 5 people to a table. There's no seats in the room, so you just crowd around that table, all right? So don't worry, the trick will be harmless. All right? So, but one rule of the game is that you must maintain silence until you're instructed to say something. All right? So, okay. So there's Dan will be there, Azmi will be there, and there's another guy, Sharil will be there to guide you. So do make your way to the breakout room for a quick half-an-hour game. So there's a reason why someone created this game. It wasn't me. right? There's a reason why someone created this game. And what we're going to do is, just going to ask you a couple of guys to volunteer and tell me how did your game go. Who wants to volunteer before I call? Anybody wants to say anything about the game? You hate it?
It was confusing.
Confusing. Yeah, one guy says it's confusing. It sucks. I'd rather play street poker. Oh, anybody else? What was your observation? Pardon? Conflicts arise, but you cannot argue, right? You wish you can talk, but some of you guys did talk, right? We should be disqualified. Any other observations? What? Yes. Okay. Okay, that's correct. You played with different rules, but why do you think we let you play this game? Yes. Okay. So, who actually knows that you were playing with a different rule? Okay. Yeah. Bocor lah. So we wanted to do it in one room, control environment. Suddenly got 3 rooms. So went a bit haywire. Okay. So what actually happened is, this is my observation. All right. So the first session of the second round, 3 tables called me. Hey, who win? Who won? We cannot decide. Nobody could decide who won, right? Because what we did was we distributed each table a different set of rules. All right. So one guy got the deck. The guy who wins is the guy with the lowest number, but not smaller than 6. We got a rule like that. Then another table got the ace of spade will win. Right. So the reason why we do this is we were trying to think of what's the best way for you to experience validation. All right. So it goes back to why do we validate? All right. Imagine the tables that you're at are 4 different customer segments. 4 different customer segments. 4 different attributes of people. We all have different worldviews, right? We all have different worldviews. Basically, for example, my idea of a Chi Chong Fan is a halal one, right? Because I'm not going to eat the non-halal one, right? All right. So some of you have Chi Chong Fan is not Chi Chong Fan without what I cannot eat, right? Okay, so these are different worldviews that you need to validate, right? So when you do business, actually this is the critical success factor of any idea that you want to have, right? You can go out there and validate, right? So do you see the importance of doing validation now? After winging it and winning it, I'm sure those who won are winging it lah. It's like, hey, I win. Okay, all right, we just follow. All right. So it is basically every customer has their own different worldviews. Sometimes we short sendiri. Hey, who doesn't know what short sendiri is? All right. I've got the best idea. I used to work for Cradle Funds. We give out grants to entrepreneurs and whatnot. So every entrepreneur will baby their product. I have the best in the world. Nobody. Until they, let me tell you a story about Webvan. Webvan, W-E-B-V-A-N. You can probably Google it. Webvan is a US startup. They were to do e-grocery shopping. Grocery shopping? You guys are familiar with Amazon, right? All right. So this is the Amazon of selling vegetables. Right? It's like your Tesco now, right? So they actually raised $1 billion to do business. So they hired the best people, some from big outlets like Tesco, but it's not Tesco, it's somewhere in some those. What are similar stores in the US like Tesco? Walmart's, Costco's,
Walmart,
yeah. So we've got people from all these stores to come in and work for them. Of course, you've got $1 billion US, so a lot of people want to come to work with you. So what they did was, they wanted to launch Webvan in 6 months, right? But they figured out, if I want to sell this thing, I must do like what Amazon did. Amazon had a distribution center, right? So you need people to distribute the books, send, mail, order out, buy the books, and all this logistics has to be taken care of. Those days, there were Amazon and there were Dell. Dell also had a just-in-time PC assembly kind of setup and things like that. So they focused on making sure that they had a fleet of vans, a fleet of distribution, a big A&P campaign, advertising and promotion. You know, we can eat, live, breathe Webvan for $1 billion. All right. So, and they started building Webvan as a product. 6 months. They got the best people. They got the best people to actually work with them. They did everything right. You know, they did everything right, like a company, like a big company, like a Costco, like a Tesco would do to launch a product out into the market. But when the day of the launch, they were faced with meager sales, like $1,000 of people buying through online for Webvan. So they started to struggle and fight. They went on more marketing campaigns. They launched. They did almost everything right. Even the venture capital firms were okay with them, because you know the venture capital firm pitched in and said, "You do this, but it didn't work." Right? So then they discovered that at that particular time, nobody validated the market. Nobody went to understand that in a set of table of 4, there's 4 different set of rules, worldviews, right? So they didn't spend that $1 billion to do validation. They spent that $1 million to build the product, to launch it into the market. So this is called a waterfall development cycle. That's a normal cycle. You can go to any of companies in Malaysia, big companies, they will start doing that. It's like our system development life cycle, they call it. I want to build a product, okay, do your user requirements, do this, blah, 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 blah. But of course, these big companies are not introducing a new business model, a new product, an innovative product. Yeah? So if they are successful, they are probably introducing another product based on the same business model. Right? You guys understand, right? Because you can innovate 2 things. You can innovate products, and you can innovate your business model. So what's an example of innovation of business model? Skype. Do you know that Skype has less than 200 employees, but gains the market share, 20% of the telco market share? A telco has at least 1,000 employees, you know, and Skype is a software company setup. A telco is not a software company setup. You know, telco has all the engineers in the world, or the 1,000 people. But you imagine Skype can garner the market share of a telco. Right? That's business model innovation, right? Okay, so this is the thing that you need to go out and validate. So to do that, to explain you further, I'll pass you back to Dan, because he's a bit younger than I am. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, let's see, plug this in.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question is really, what is it we're validating? I mean, it's really important to know that you're doing the right thing, right? You don't want to do the wrong thing. You want to do the right thing, so you should validate. You should really figure out what it is that you're doing right. Does that make sense? I don't think so. No. What you really need to do is you need to find out what's wrong, right? This penguin here is sitting out there thinking, oh, everything's wonderful, you know. I've got this great, beautiful sea to jump into. I've got everything clear. I'm going to bring all my buddies here. I'm going to do all the things right, and this this is what he's validating. So he's trying to make sure, checking it out, making sure that everything's going to go cool, going to go right. But this is what the reality is. You know, you need to find out what's wrong. So this term validation, I believe, is a misnomer. I mean, meaning that it's the wrong word, it's the wrong way to describe it. What you really want to find out is what you're going to do wrong. You need to find out what's wrong about the assumptions that you're making, because you're making all kinds of assumptions. You believe that this is the best thing that a customer needs, but you could be wrong, right? If you're wrong about that basic assumption, you're not going to sell anything, right? So you have to validate. We do what we're calling choosing the most riskiest assumption. You go through your business model and you say, God, what would really kill my company if I got this wrong, right? So you want to invalidate. You want to make sure that you got that right. But by doing that, what you really need to know is when you get something wrong, you should find that out. You need to find out what you're doing wrong. Okay, so to give some examples of that, I've got. I'll go a little bit further first. First of all, how do you validate? I'm still going to use the term validate because it's in all the books and everything. I mean, I believe it's really about invalidation. What you want to find out what you're doing wrong, but you need to really prepare and plan and be ready and contact your customer, because who is it you're going to validate? Well, you're going to validate all your assumptions in your business model canvas. Let me go back here and look at this. If you don't already know, in the boxes in this business model canvas, we put all of our assumptions. Our assumptions about who is our customer in our customer segments area. We put what kind of value proposition we're going to offer that customer, exactly what combination of things that's going to get the customer's attention, that's going to solve their problem and find and cure their pain points and gives them some extra gains that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So these are a bunch of assumptions. And again, this is not about business model canvas. We'll do another one of those sometime. But really knowing which assumptions every single one of these sticky notes. Basically, you do this by sticky notes. I'm sorry, I have to back up into realizing you don't know this. It's a brainstorming assumptions. When you fill out your business model canvas, you say, okay, I think we're going to sell to this kind of person. You write down your customer kind, and you put that up there. And you say, well, I think we're going to sell them this kind of product. And you put that up there. And you say, I think we're going to get our customers by doing this. And you put that up in your customer relationship section. You say, well, we're going to deliver our product to our customer and put it in our channels section. So there are all of these assumptions that we have to fill out. And once we fill out everything in this business model canvas, we've got a pretty good picture of what our business is like. But the problem is they're all just assumptions, right? They're all could be wrong, right? And most of them will be wrong. So what we do is very systematically go through and check each of these assumptions. And we do that by going out in the field to talk to our customer, to talk to our key partners. I mean, key partners are like team players. If you pick the wrong key partner, they may screw it up for you, right? But you may think that, you know, FedEx is the best way to go, and you might find out that bicycles, you know, delivering it by kids on bicycles is a far better way. So choosing your key partner, you're going to choose FedEx, you're going to choose the guy on the bicycle. We have to find that out. And the only way to find it out is to go out and talk to the people on the bicycles, talk to the FedEx, talk to your key partners, talk to the key resources, or find out what key resources you need. It's all of these things, all of the assumptions that you make in here, you have to validate in some way. So what is it you do when you validate? Again, we're going to find out what's wrong, but how do you do that? Well, first of all, you really need to prepare and pre-plan and say, okay, these are my assumptions. I'm going to go out and figure out, by talking to my customers, I'm going to wipe my head clean of all the things that I think I know and say, well, what do I need to do to go out and find a customer? I mean, first of all, you have to plan. How are you going to find your customer? I mean, you got to know, well, I'm going to find them in this particular kind of store, or they're going to be in this particular building, and they're going to be this kind of person, and you have to know who the customer is. So you have to pre-plan and then contact them for like a business-to-business kind of sale, you have to hit the right person within that business that's going to be the one who can make the buying decision. So you have to contact them and prepare for that whole activity of going out and really learning about what, and you have to really be bold. You have to get up and get out and talk to people and find out what they have to say. So the most important thing about validation is listening. It's not about asking questions, really. It's about listening, about really understanding what it is that are the problems that they have, the kinds of, the quality of the character that they have, what makes up for a real customer, what makes up for the problem statement that they have. So you're going to get that mostly just by listening. Just forget everything you know and anything you think and just listen to your customer. Just listen to what they have to say. Embrace their worldview. Try to really understand what it is that they see. Not how you see what they see. What do they really see? Ask them the questions. You have to be really empathic. You have to engage them and know, hey, you know, I really want to solve your problem. So in order for me to solve your problem, I have to really understand what kind of problems do you have? I mean, tell me more about what it is that you do, what are the real pain points that you have? What problems and jobs do you need to have done for you? So you have to be empathic there. You have to really have what we call open-ended inquiry. That means you don't ask a yes or no question, or you don't ask, what color do you like, what colors do you like, you know, or what are your favorite colors for your product? That gets you a yes or no, or a, you know, red, green, or blue answer. That's not what you need. You need, like, well, what kind of qualities do you need in your product in order to make it more effective for you? And let them talk. Like, get them to talk. Get them to talk about, well, you know, I really love I hate those bold colors, right? And get them to tell you what they want. And then don't just listen to one. Make 100 interviews. Literally 100 interviews. If you talk to 100 people, how long does that take? I mean, you could maybe take 10 minutes with each person. I mean, that's 100 minutes or 1,000 minutes. Whatever you spend is a small fraction of the cost when you mess up later, right? If you mess up now and you spend the time now and you find out the right answers, you're going to be far better off in the future. So open-ended inquiry, you want to really make sure that you're asking questions that the customer can just rattle on about what it is that they need and what's their problem and issues. A lot of times I'll use the term customer because most of the things you need to find out are about your customer. You need to know their qualities, the characteristics of them, what are their problems, what are their pains, what are their gains, what are the issues that you're trying to solve for them, and how you're going to present it to them. How do they like to pay for a product? I mean, you need to ask them. You can't just assume, okay, it's going to cost $29.95. You have to ask them, well, if I were to ask you to, you know, pay $29.95, would you buy it? No, I wouldn't. You know, they might say, well, I would pay $5 a month. Okay, well, $5 a month can maybe add up to much more than $29.95, but you need to find out how they're willing to pay, how they're willing to give you the money. They have to measure the value and then know how they want to pay you for that value. They're willing to pay if you deliver the value. So also look for lies, because people will want to be nice. They'll just tell you, oh yeah, I love that idea. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I'll buy one of those. But you have to really dig and find out do they really mean that, and try to get down to the point where you really understand.
Let me add on the lies. I'll share with you a story. I was coaching one of the USM researchers. They had a product called Endeavor, right? Endeavor is a medical imaging tool that you can actually share with a surgeon in KL, and he will be able to annotate. Meaning to say, if this is scanning of your brain, you'll be able to write something and send to the specialist in KL and to get an expert opinion. So when they wanted to do, they wanted to validate, they do a proof of concept. So they started, let me do this free for your hospital, right? So they started doing it free, and then they started collecting feedbacks. Because it's free, everyone said nice things about the product. The minute that they asked, okay, the 3 months is over, would you like to buy it? This is the one, then all the truth starts coming out. And if you give, you know, even if you give sweets to someone free, nobody's going to complain, right? Right? So in order to find out to differentiate what the lies are, start charging.
Well, this also helps you know what they want to pay, right? I mean, you need to know that as well. So start asking them to pay right up front. You say, well, you know, would you buy one for me for $5 or whatever the, oftentimes we ask people to do validation and we come back and they say, oh yeah, I validated, I sent out these surveys, or I went and I gave these people this questionnaire to fill out. That is not validation. That's not valid. I mean, there's certain very constrained circumstances where you could use that method. But by and large, you need to talk to people because you need to have their words, whatever it needs, they need to fill out that sheet. Not by checking boxes, they need to write you an essay, right? I mean, they need to tell you what it is that is really all about their business. So face-to-face is the best way. You have to talk to people face-to-face. And when we send our teams out to do validation, we say you have to meet 100 customers and talk with 100 customers face-to-face. And that is more difficult for B2B customers because you have to set up there are a lot more businesses that you have to, but you need that kind of information before you really know whether you have something valuable. In the case of web or web mobile products that you have, there is a way of validating your product by driving traffic to a website. And this is really an effective way of doing it, but you're still not talking directly to your customer. You're kind of tricking them into talking with you. And that is, you put up a page, a landing page of your value proposition. It says, this is what we want to provide you with. And it's a description of what it is that we are providing as a solution and how all of the details of the proposition that we're giving them. And then you actually buy traffic. You go to Google AdWords and you buy a certain number of clicks onto this kind of the keyword that would be your target market, and have them come to your web page and have them see your value proposition. And if they click on buy, you know, hey, they kind of like that. You know, at least that's the way they liked it when I laid out the value proposition like that. Or no, you know, or they leave the page. So it isn't as good as a face-to-face. But at least you have some in a world where you can't actually talk to your customer because they're all on the internet. It's at least one of the ways that you can engage with your customer a little more. So the main problem here is that don't assume that you know. Okay. The main thing here is just don't assume that you know, because you oftentimes don't know. You think you know, you may have the best intentions, but you really don't understand the problem. So before we go on, let me show you some examples of some, if I can get a,
I hooked it to a speaker.
oh good.
You might want to test it out first.
Okay.
Okay. Let's test
Let me
audio.
just play this one first.
Okay, maybe you want to.
Yeah, it's there. It's coming, isn't it? Okay. Let me just go down to here and we'll go. I have to drag this window over here. Where is it? There we go. This is going to introduce you to the man who really founded this methodology. His name is Steve Blank. He's the guy who wrote the book that my friend David gave me, and really he exposed the secret to the world of how this entrepreneurship really should be done. So this is the man. His name is Steve Blank. We do some very strict monitoring of our teams using software that was developed in part by Steve Blank, and it's called the Launchpad Central, and it's software that helps us gather information about our teams, but also gather information about the customers and helps them. It's really good software. So there's a lot of extra tools and extra software or extra video examples that are given with this Lean Launch or this. Anyway, I'll show you. Let's see if I can go here.
Hi, Karina. Thanks for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, sure.
I'm working on a mobile app to help people track their diet. So, are you?
Excuse me, I'm just going to go back to the beginning. There's a piece that's missing of this. Oh, no, I guess not.
Hi, Karina. Thanks for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, sure.
I'm working on a mobile app to help people track their diet. So, are you generally a healthy eater?
Oh yeah, I'm a really healthy eater. I love vegetables and fresh produce. So yeah, super healthy.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Oh, okay.
One of the key things you're trying to accomplish in talking to customers is trying to understand the details about the customer archetype. This wrong way was just kind of a closed-end question that just got you a yes and no. You want to know everything about them. How do they spend their day? Where do they spend their money? Who are they? What are some other things that you might need to know about them? For example, what do they read? What kind of blogs? What kind of websites, newspapers? Do they watch TV, etc.? In an optimal world, you need to understand everything your potential customer did, used, and bought from the moment they got up to the moment they went in bed. And so your job is to start asking these questions so you could get a view of the whole customer.
Hi, Karina. Thanks for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, sure.
I'm working on a mobile app to help people track their diet. Would you say you're generally a healthy eater?
Oh yeah, I'm a really healthy eater. I eat a lot of vegetables and fresh produce. Very healthy.
That's great. So, can you tell me what you ate yesterday?
Well, yesterday I had coffee for breakfast, and then it was pretty busy, so I skipped lunch, and I was tired when I got home, so I ordered in pizza.
Okay. What about earlier this week?
Let's see. Well, I mean, this week wasn't a very good week for me, so I mean, I think I had fast food on Monday, and then I had like a burger on Tuesday, and then yet.
Okay, so if this week was a bad week, what about the week before that?
Well, the week before that was more mixed. Yeah, I think I might have gone pizza again one day, but some of the other days were better than that one.
Like, what'd you eat on the good days?
Let's see. Well, I think I had some roast chicken on Monday for dinner, and then on Tuesday, well, we ate out. It was someone's birthday, so I think I had some meatloaf, and then for dinner I had sandwich. Oh yeah, I always have dessert. There's dessert too.
Okay. I think there's a little more.
So one of the traps of customer development is getting out of the building, assuming you understand the problem. And that's bad in general, but it gets a lot worse when you assume you understand the problem and you're talking to people who actually do have the problem, and you end up sounding like an idiot. So let's see an example of that.
Thanks for meeting with me today. So I know that you're looking for toys that you can spend more time with your daughter playing. And we've designed this great toy that lets you do that. You can play with her and have fun, and you can teach her about building and circuits. So what do you think?
Well, actually, that's not the kind of toy I'm looking for. I like toys that she can play with by herself because I'm pretty busy. I don't want to be showing her how to do every single step along the way. I have other things that I need to do.
Oh. Thanks for meeting with me today. So I just wanted to kind of understand a little more about your needs and with your daughter and the toys that she plays with. So I was wondering how you and your daughter play with toys together.
Well, we don't actually play with toys together that often. So on a typical day, I come home from work, I'm doing a lot of other things. I'm not always doing every single activity with her.
Can you walk me through the last time you bought a toy for your daughter?
Yes, so I heard about a toy.
Can you tell me about the last time you bought a toy for your daughter's friend's birthday party?
Well, actually, I buy all the toys for birthday parties.
Can you tell me what you and your daughter do after school when she gets home?
So my daughter does homework at the kitchen table.
Can you tell me about how your daughter plays with her toys?
Well, I can tell you about one specific toy, and that's American Girl. She's obsessed with the catalog, and she reads all...
I think that's a pretty good example of the idea about open-ended questions. Did you get it? You saw the difference, right? I mean, she's asking everything and just letting her customer talk and really getting to the bottom of what it is that she does. How does she buy? Where does she go? You know, how does she do that? There's one more here that I'd like to show you. This one's on customer empathy.
Unless you're a domain expert, getting close to the customer and becoming the customer is sometimes really hard. Sometimes it requires you to spend weeks in a library reading up on computational fluid dynamics or computational chemistry. Sometimes it even requires you to have a co-founder in that space. But sometimes it takes you to do some extraordinary efforts to have empathy for your potential customers. And here's a great example of empathy for customers.
Karina, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to share our new glucose monitoring app with you. It helps diabetics measure their blood sugar. You're a diabetic, right?
Right, yeah, I'm a diabetic.
So this should be an app that I imagine you'll love it. It's really going to help you on a daily basis, I'm sure.
I mean, I have diabetes, but what do you really know about diabetes? I mean, I've had this disease my whole life.
I've read a lot of research on diabetes. Like, this is an app that should really help you.
You know, I have to stick myself 7 to 10 times a day to measure my glucose levels. You know that I get calluses on my fingers from that?
I don't know all the details actually of what it's like to
yeah,
be that.
you don't have a clue about what my life is like.
Karina, thank you again for letting me come and talk to you about the app we're developing. So it's an app specifically for diabetics to help you monitor your blood glucose levels.
What do you really know about diabetes?
So I admit, as a non-diabetic, I can't know exactly what it's like to be diabetic. But in order to build an app that could really help diabetics, I've spent the last month living like I was diabetic. So I've pricked my finger and checked my blood before every meal and mornings and nights, just so I could understand what a diabetic went through.
What? Really? You've been pricking yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you probably know this better than anybody, but now I have calluses across all of my fingers, and I'm having to like use new fingers all the time just to be able to get blood out. I mean, at the end of the day, how can we build an app that can really help diabetics if we don't understand what it's like to be a diabetic?
Well, I really appreciate that you've been trying to empathize with what my experience is like.
So, I mean, is it okay if I show you the app now and kind of explain to you why I think it'll help you?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to see it.
How are we doing for time now?
So far we got,
I'll just go back to...
we got 9 minutes.
Okay. All right, I'll just go back to the other...
Leave some for Q&A.
yeah. Guess I can just quit that one, stop that here. Where's my cursor? Come on.
I'm going to drag it back to some. I'll bring the cursor and drag this.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my cursor. Oh, I have to close this first. There we go. Okay, now I can get out. Okay, so we talked a lot about how. It's really important now to know about who is important to do. Who do you talk to? And the people who do the finding, who do the validating, have to be the founders of the venture. It used to be that we would leave this information about customer discovery up to a VP of marketing. And so maybe there'd be a technical group that had developed an app or some soft piece of software, and the VP of engineering would be in charge of the problem, but the VP of marketing would be in charge of the customer, knowing the customer. And oftentimes the VP of marketing would go out and would ask these questions, and would come back and talk to the CEO and say, well, you know, they don't really like the product. They didn't like this or that or the other thing. You just don't know the right customer, and so you know you're using the wrong questions. You're not, and they would fire the vice president of marketing often because they thought they weren't just getting the right information, that they weren't doing their job, right? But the reality was they were getting good information, but they couldn't act on it because they weren't in a position of power. So the people who need to do this validation are the founders of the company and the core team. The people who really are ones that have power to change the venture. Because if you find out you're doing something wrong, you got to change it. And you better change it now and not just listen to somebody else and then judge them as being wrong. So you need to test all of the prospective customer segments. You can maybe imagine there's a whole bunch of different kinds of customers, but you need to test them and find out and go to each different one of them and find out what their needs are, because this is the time when you really find out who is really your customer. You may be finding out that you think this age group of kids are your customer, and you find out that they don't even make the buying decision. So maybe you have to please them. But the person who's actually buying it is the parents for them. So you really have to know and identify all the different players, all of the different parts of the assumptions that you're making. And there's a thing called multi-sided markets. A multi-sided market is an example of, well, Google is a good example of a multi-sided market. You have users and you have payers. The users are all of us who get to use it for free. And we have to be pleased, right? That product has to be designed really well for us so that the more and more of us will come to use that search engine. But we also have to please the buyer, someone who actually pays Google, and that's the advertisers. So you have to make sure that you're providing a product service for both sides of the market, because the buyers wouldn't have anything to buy if it wasn't for the fact that they were pleasing lots of us to get us to come to this search engine for free. So this is what we call multi-sided markets. So you have to really please both sides, otherwise you don't have a business. It's important to test international markets differently than local markets, because international, as soon as you change your environment, cultures change, the way people look at things change, people's attitudes about things that will work in one place just will totally fail in another, because you don't understand the customer. Not that they won't work, it's that you just got to find out how to make them work, or how to serve the customer in that particular market. And we do a thing called the soft landing zone. Maybe you just want to tell us a little bit about soft landing zone.
So we've got a soft landing zone program where we are replicating it. We have a partnership in Arizona, US, and by next year we will have some ASEAN countries presence in some ASEAN markets as well. What we do is we do from a month to 2 months of validation in that particular market. So the companies that go to our accelerator, of course, there are investors that we have that will look into that, and we basically share the business. We share the profile with our partners in Arizona, or especially those business models that are better off in a more mature market. Right? So what we do is we will the program in Arizona will actually bring you to see the market in Arizona. Right? For example, there's 200 hospitals in Arizona. So if we are doing the market validation here with the local hospitals, so the next year we'll be doing in Arizona the same 2 months of validation and stuff like that. So that's something that is unique to our accelerator. So we have market validation programs elsewhere that we feed our entrepreneurs to. Okay, because what we're trying to achieve is to get market traction in other parts of the world, because we can build a market here, but we want the entrepreneurs to think global from day one. So they have to do international market validation as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. Now that we live in a global world with the internet makes it global world. We don't have any choice. As soon as you launch your website here, you're able to, the world is able to view it. Everyone in the world can view it. You may make a mistake of putting it in one language, and then only you're narrowing your market to only those people can read that language. The problem is that you could be missing out on many sales of people who are coming who want to see that. So provide translations of it, or provide it in a more international language that can allow you to test and know that you may have other markets that you can sell to. And you do have those markets. It's a matter of identifying exactly how to serve them better. For example, hospitals in the United States run maybe very differently than hospitals here. And there may be processes that happen here that you could solve with a nice app, but you bring them to the United States and they don't even have that same problem, or vice versa. So the things, it's really important to know that you're building the solution for the market that needs it. Okay. Then the next section is really about the methods that we use. Multi-person interviews are really good to have groups of people. I developed a pen top, he mentioned a little bit about my work with pen top computing. One of the first things that I developed was a tool for bird watchers. Because bird watchers, probably there are not very many bird watchers in Malaysia, but it is an extraordinarily huge market in the United States and Britain. I mean, millions, literally hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions. What?
Accident watchers.
What? Accident watchers, yeah, okay. So figure out how to serve them, right? So bird watchers can love to identify birds. Well, and you've got field guides that help you identify the birds. They show the picture of the bird and exactly how the bird is shaped and colors and the exact. And they need to identify these birds, but 9 times out of 10 you'll hear a bird before you see it. You may never see it at all. Well, I knew that you could, by putting the bird's songs into the book, you could identify the bird by sound. And so I gave the bird watchers a whole new realm of identification of birds in the field. So there's already millions of bird watchers, and I gave them a way to put, to take out into the field with portable CD players were popular at that time, and we built a methodology for adding the sound to the bird books. So here's an example of I just got lucky in some sense. I mean, I thought that was a great idea to add sound to books, but I had no idea what my markets were. I thought it was bird watchers, and I was right, at least in one segment, but I had no idea that was one of the primary areas was for mathematics. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, how would sound be useful for mathematics? Well, I ran into a educational psychologist who had done a lot of work on the cognitive process, and if you add sound, words describing mathematical problems while they're being done, people learn it a lot quicker. And so by making some software for another publisher, was an educational publisher, adding sound to books about mathematics, we could greatly improve the learning in mathematics, especially for certain groups of people who tend to be more auditory. Anyway, so an example of multi-purpose interviews is that we built a product even before we manufactured it. We built some crude prototypes of it. My mentor at the time told me, okay, now you got the prototype, go and sell it. And I said, that's crazy. I can't sell this. I can't even manufacture them. It would take 6 months before I could get it into production. But he says, no, go out and sell it. And so I went to this conference and I lined it up and started demonstrating the product. I sold $40,000 worth of product within 2 hours. People were just lined up. They heard it, they saw it. That's all it took for them to just line up and say, hey, this is something I want. And they were signing checks for me or giving me credit cards for a product that I couldn't even deliver for 6 months. I had to be honest about that. I said, listen, I can't even deliver this for 6 months. Doesn't matter, just make sure that it arrives by Christmas. So it worked for me. But you really have to have, you really have to know and understand your market. So even before we built those first ones, we got 20 bird watchers to come into a room with us, and we demonstrated the product to those 20 bird watchers, and we asked them about it. First of all, we didn't show it to them. We just asked them first about them. We call these I'm forgetting the word right now.
Ornithologists?
What?
Ornithologists?
Ornithologists, well, there were different classes of bird watchers that we were doing. Yeah, and ornithologists were the easy ones to find because they were written up, but some bird watchers were very difficult to find. And we actually had to go to organizations. There was the American Birding Association and the Audubon Society. So we would find the right people and then bring them for what we call focus groups. Focus groups are where you get a bunch of people together in a room, and you usually turn on a camera so that you're getting everything that they say on there. And you just have a series of questions and discussions amongst a group of people that are all in the same group so that they can commiserate with one another and talk to you about it. It's a very effective way. And focus groups have been used for many, many years on validating products in markets. But using it as a vehicle for validating the market, not just validating the product, but validating the market. What do they really need? Because you can find out things in those focus groups about what they need that if you just make a new product, you can serve that need. So multi-person interviews, we do public interviews, oftentimes finding people in lines and like waiting in line to go into a movie or something. Talk to everybody in line. They can't go anywhere. You know, they have to stand there and talk with you. Sometimes you have to be a little bit bold and almost get yourself arrested for, being in people's face and really knowing what. Really pay attention to asking the right questions, right? You have to pay attention. I say that because it's about listening but ask the right questions and then just really listen. Notice some of the questions that were asked in the last video were really good questions. Tell me about the last time you bought a toy for, not your daughter, but for a birthday party, a gift that you were giving someone else. She wanted to know about the nature of gift giving, which is different than buying for your kid. It's fundamentally different. So asking the right questions. Looking for insights, you're always looking for the things that are different than what you think they are, right? That's where you're really going to learn things. Testing your MVP, we have a methodology called or something called the minimum viable product, which is really just the first step that you take in defining what product you're going to deliver to your customer that identifies the core value that you're going to deliver to your customer, and then show them that. You don't give it all the bells and whistles and all the good things that you might deliver in the end, but just give your minimum viable product so you can test the value that you're giving it in your first pass of the product. The players. The players, what I mean by that is that there are users, there are buyers, there are influencers, there are even saboteurs in business B2B sales. There's oftentimes people who want to build the product that you're trying to sell to the company, and they're inside the company. And they'll try to stop that sale from happening because they want to do it, right? There's all kinds of things that go on in company politics in business sales that are quite different, but you need to talk to the users and the buyers, as we said before. The influencers are the ones who don't make the buying decision, but they're the ones who give recommendations to the one who does make the buying decision. Sometimes they're more important than others. But you have to, here's another example. I worked with, when we were making our CD players, this was now moved into the language learning market. You can see also that adding sound to books is a good way of making a tool for language learning. So we were talking with, they were calling themselves Lucky Gold Star at the time, but now it's LG. And making some CD players, and we had a champion inside. This is in the United States. In New Jersey, LG has an office, a major sales office for all of the United States. And we had someone who was one of the top people in sales at that company, and was really pushing the fact that our technology would really take off, really do well. He really understood the U.S. market. Then the CEO from Korea came to New Jersey, and I was supposed to do the pitch of the thing. He says, "No, we'll never sell this product. Forget it." He says, "The way we teach people is we put a hatchet in their head and pull it open and pour the knowledge in that we want them to learn." I mean, So it's totally different than my way of thinking about it, which was very user-centered. I mean, the people can choose what they want to learn by scanning the wand across the... Anyway, so the point is that there are many different kinds of people, and you don't even know... I thought we had a sale. I thought we had a big deal going with Lucky Gold Star until we found out that, you know, the person who, this influencer didn't have the influence that he needed to actually sell it. So it's getting to know all of those people. So I guess we should just, I'm sorry it was abrupt ending, but we wanted to leave time for questions and answers.
So finally you get to ask a question. All right. Any questions from the floor? Yeah, sure.
Hello. Hi. Just need to check. If we are pitching for investors, and investors need proof for market validation, how should we go about it to show them that these are the market validation that we've done? So that,
Right. Yeah. Investors are very, very wise to this now. They know that the game has changed. They don't invest in the same way they used to. They expect and mandate you to do market validation. You have to know that you're presenting something that can get traction, and you have to convince them of that. And so I'm not telling you anything different. You just do these steps and tell your potential investors about what you did to, they'll appreciate the fact that you've really done your job. And
to actually, before you present to the investor, what you should do is go out and validate first, right? So that you would have a story to tell to investors, right? Because for example, if you, right? So we've got a company that does encryption. So they were pitching. So before the pitch, we actually did a lot of validation. So we went to see people in the banks and asked them how would they use encryption in banks and things like that. So then until we got a storyline, until we know that the banks, we found out that the banks have a unit called the mobile computing unit that is an IT support for all the notebooks and the mobile devices that they give out to managers and above in one particular bank. So they've got 5,000 of these notebooks. So and it's one of the banks in Malaysia. So from that we got an actual validated need for the encrypted product. So when you pitch to investors, tell specifics of your validation exercise. They would appreciate that because it is forget the old way of AC Nielsen data is there's 200 billion market for encryption, data security, big data. Everyone's going to do blah 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 blah, you know. But actually go bottoms up. Bottoms up meaning find the customer segments, go and know them, identify, validate until you get a storyline. And with that storyline, come back and tell it to the investors. So your financial data, your sales projections will be more realistic. If I know one bank in Malaysia with 5,000 notebooks for me to sell at probably 450 ringgit, that will bring me 2 million ringgit a year worth of licensing, for example. And I know that there's maybe 20 similar banks. So there's actually a total addressable market of about 2 times 20, 40 million annual total addressable market. So this is more convincing because your first source is not a hypothesis. Your first source is a validated, your first assumption, you have validated it. Then it's more solid for the investors. Right?
It's much easier for an investor to see how to scale a company than it is for them to believe that there's a big market out there. They need to see how to get to that big market, which means they have to start with, like you said, customers, people who have really bought, and then how many more are there. So if this is how they buy, and then they can turn the crank and see this is how we can make the money.
Let us talk about Ali.
Okay.
Okay. One of our participants in our accelerator, what we did was we told him to go and validate. Okay, his product, some of you may know him. He designs a shoe that you can detach the sole of the shoe from the body. So meaning to say that you can have, you can actually swap your sole. Not sole, but sole. All right? Okay, so you can swap your sole. And then so he was excited about it. He says, now I can sell one shoe with 4 different colors of sole. Right? That will make my soul lively. Right? So what happens is we send him for a validation exercise. Then he came back. People don't really care if you can swap soles or not. You know, people. If you talk about the design crowd, they don't really care. But what they care is that you can design custom designs of the shoes. And because he could split these 2 sole from the body together, we can make it. We can send these shoes in an envelope to anyone. You imagine the canvas shoes. I can split the 2. All right, and now he's doing he's getting he's on the traction of getting 1,000 pre-orders for his design. He's doing a design competition for his shoes.
Yeah, he learned that his value proposition to begin with was, hey, I can sell shoes to you in parts. No one got it. Now his proposition, I can put art on your shoes. And that made a huge difference. And I can send them to you in mail. Upload your artwork and we'll send you a pair of shoes.
So that's the thing that you need to discover. You know, your first idea needs to be validated because of the different worldviews that is out there and want to buy. So this is an example. Any more questions? Yes. Okay, that guy. Blue t-shirt.
How many people are you supposed to interview with or validate with?
How many people?
Until you know that you have the right answer, and how do you actually devise a big picture?
There's actually some research that was done this. Okay.
Capture.
What?
Okay. How many people do you need to interview before you can get an accurate thing? Is it? I missed the last part.
That's the first question. Second question is how do you, let's say I don't know how big is the market, certain segment in Malaysia. How am I supposed to derive that if there's no reports and I can only talk to 10 people?
There's no data to show you that how big the market is, right? And how do you
First one is how many you interview. I think that idea is okay. How do you gauge the whole market for people?
So it's a related question, right? 1 and 2. Okay. So because what he wants to know is if you don't have data on that particular segment to work based on, there's no AC Nielsen report or whatever. So how many people that you need to interview that will reflect the actual total addressable market?
Yeah.
Right?
This 1 second is like, if, for example, that guy, the soul guy, he interviewed 10 designers. How are you supposed to know that this 10 is enough to represent the whole thing? Or is it actually I need to interview another 20 will tell me no, actually I don't care. That is a
Okay, well, there's some general rules. I mean, always the more the better. But there has been some studies for product design. Now, this only works for product design. It doesn't work about customer. But for product design, if you show your product to 10 people, you might get between 70 and 80% of what are the core things, the core value that you might get from a population. But you got to keep going past that because in order for the next 20 people that you might talk with, one of them might give you one innovative thing that will dramatically improve your product. So you don't just stop there. You know, show it to 10 and then show it to another 10 and then another 10. After you've collected 100 interviews of people around product, you've got basically 99% of what the value capture you can do. So for the little bit of time that it takes you to talk with 100 people about product design, that you can get a pretty good sense of what it is. Now, talk about the market part.
To add on to that, you are actually looking for a pattern. And you have to interview enough people to detect a pattern. All right. So, for example, if I'm selling, in lack of a better example, For example, okay, let's take back the shoes, right? So if Ali was to design his shoes for college students, because he wants to make it trendy and he wants to do it inter-college competitions. So obviously he knows where to go already, right? So go to private colleges, go to public universities, go to schools, even secondary schools, and test out. But what he will find out that after going to 2 or 3 colleges, he will detect the pattern. The pattern could be in Sunway College, more female enrolls into the competition to contribute shoe designs, for example. And that pattern is repeated in other colleges. Right? So that pattern as indication of a size of something that is scalable. Right? So it's a subjective answer to your question, but do as much as you can in that particular customer segment until you detect the pattern. Right? Because on an 80-20 rule, out of 100 you interview, 20 will be special case one. Very unique. They will wear bell bottom. They will, in these days of age. So it's not a big market for you to focus on. But until you detect this big market that you should serve, then you will. So there's no specific number, magic number. But if it's a B2C, do more than 100. If it's B2B, do more than 100 if you can. All right. Maybe one company interview 20 people within the organization, right? Because in B2B, there's a lot more things that you need to consider. Things like how does the company make decisions on buying a product? Who are the influencers? The big boss might say yes, and then the small boss might resist, and things like that. So you need to interview all from the big boss, small boss, to the small police and all that inside. So that could make 100. But the more, until you're satisfied with the pattern that you detected, then that could reflect into a market segment that's worth delivering for, right? Yes?
Okay, for example, let's say I'm going to sell a product. I needed validation, I already have investors, and I have enough funding.
All right.
And my initial plan is, should I start by region and by state? Or since I already have validation and funding, can I launch it within the whole Malaysia? Which step would you think, or which opinions would you think would be best for us to do this?
Okay, he's got everything. He's validated, he's got funding, he's got investors backing him up. Now he wants to roll up. So his question is, should he start, where should he start to focus as the first market segment that he wants to address?
Yeah.
Is it regional?
Well,
is it?
It depends. It depends dramatically, first of all, on what the product is. I mean, if it's only the kind of food that's eaten in one region, I mean, if that's what your product, obviously it's not going to go elsewhere until you validate it elsewhere. But in these markets these days, are you launching it on a website?
Would be more on to website, more traffic, marketing, mobile phones.
So is it something that would have appeal? I mean, if it solves a basic human problem, then it has appeal outside of Malaysia. So I would say that you should start and advertise and structure your business such that you look at global markets from the very beginning.
If I were you at that stage, you would already have numbers that you have presented to the investors, right? You would have already been telling your investors that in FY1, I'm going to make 1,000 units of sales of this particular product, right? So what you need to do now is, because you have everything, so he's saying run. Run, boy, run. So you need to break down how you're going to achieve this 1,000 and focus on the 1,000 units. So if going big means that you're going to spend all the money in the world to just achieve this 1,000, put that aside as option A. Then do another strategy which maybe you achieve 1,000 in one locality, but you only spend this much. Then do some comparison on the risk. At the end of the day, deliver the numbers, right? Because I'm sure you did a pro forma or you haven't done. If you haven't done, introduce me to your investor. I love investors. Okay, so that's one way. Your question.
this Tuesday I have a Cradle interview, and one of the requirements validations were last minute. When we try to ask them what is required, we can't get the answers on that. Okay, that's number one question. Number two is, what is the time frame of the validations? Because right, if like mentioned just now, that's like in Go California by 2 months and all those, right? If it's too long, along the way when we do the validations, somehow we met the sabotage that want to do the same thing, and they know that we are doing this, and they have more funds, more resource, and build the same thing and outpace us. Then how do we overcome this?
My answer is, as soon as you detect the first pattern, then straight away, you validate. Normally, don't take more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks to do rigorous and move.
There should be an iterative pattern. So you're always finding more information, but you're cycling around through this validation pattern over and over and over again. You want it to go as fast as cycles as you can do. Meaning you get some ideas, so you do some interview with the customer, you present your value proposition to them, you get some feedback from them, you find out what they did like or didn't like, you change the product, you change the value proposition, you do it again.
But something says 100 is very small to represent the whole market.
Yeah, but what he's saying is, do multiple rounds of validation. 100 come back with the data, start building a feature that you think is scalable, then try to go out again and repeat until you find something that's actual, right? So speed is of course important, especially with developing mobile apps and whatnot. But the beauty of but validation is so important because there's a lot of people out there who has the same idea as yours, but are just going ahead with it without validating. Right? So as well, so there's no steadfast rule on how to be the first mover, but try to do quick iteratives of your validation.
I've got 5 more minutes and then I have to go to the airport.
Can I add on the question? Okay, let's say there's a product in the market which is already have maybe 10,000 number of users. Can we use that as our validation point? Because it's built by someone else, but what we do is enhance or things that they don't have.
Sure. If you have a data which is solidifying that problem statement, of course do it, and then maybe take a sample of it to test whether it is still relevant with the current ecosystem. Right?
But can be local and also overseas?
Yeah, it depends on which market you want to segment, you must validate.
If it's for Malaysia, but the data is for another country,
you still need to go and validate. Because primary data are sometimes not that accurate reflection of it.
Any other questions? I've got a few more minutes.
We are normal human beings. When we always thought that our idea is always the best. And as entrepreneurs, so we never take no as an answer, right?
Right.
So how will we draw the line between this is a good input I got from the interview, or this is a bad input, which is mine is better?
Yeah.
So how do you draw the line between that?
Between passion and not giving up and making, being persistent, and you just don't be stupid. That's the thing. I mean, you can be so persistent, and I can know of situations where I just really wanted to do this, and I ignored what I was hearing because I was in love with the product. That's this passion, blind passion, and persistence should come with wisdom. You have to listen to your customer and really know what is it that they're saying, being open enough to really just say, I really, and humble enough to say, I really don't know.
In most cases, like, customers don't know what they want. They stumble upon it. They will say,
oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, well, customers don't know what they want when you're giving them something truly new. But if you show that to them, once you've identified what it is that really delivers a solution for them, they'll say, yeah, I like that. They'll know it when they see it. So this is where innovation comes in. Steve Jobs often said, you don't talk to your customer, because he was of a mind that could identify the new and innovative things that people would like. But once he showed it to the people, I mean, he was very rigorous about making sure that They did the market study, they did the analysis of these products. You know, just the, you know, the wheel of the iPad, that interface was the thing that made or broke MP3 players. There were MP3 players long before that, but it wasn't just, it was the vision of how to get that right, how to get that interface right. And that took a lot of iterations and a lot of discussion and a lot of work with people.
So basically it's like this. Many entrepreneurs are so close to the baby that you are biased when you ask people interviews. And when they don't agree with you, you get upset. You just tell, that's not, I don't want to listen to him, right? So one fine day, if you don't listen to them, you know what will happen? When your business go down, then you will be naturally forced into giving up. And at that time, it will be something very painful. You know? So these are lessons that I learned on my own. So it's not, I'm not relating other people's experience. Right? So because at the end of the day, you need to not miss your sorrow as well. So those are the things that you need to also, but be open about it. You know, be open about it. There's a thin line between being passionate and blind love. You know? So if you love what you're doing, be passionate, but wear glasses. All right.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think that,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, Rizal and Dan.